Alright, so I just watched Disney's new animated film Zootopia, which is, by the way, a Disney film, not a Pixar film. That's probably something a lot of people are confused about. What are my thoughts on the movie? It's a very entertaining little movie, but that's not really what you want to hear, right? You want to hear about how the movie is basically a fucking multiculturalist propaganda film that basically promotes a New York City slash Toronto slash San Francisco slash Sao Paulo type urbanite environment as the ideal place to live. And you know what? That's what you're gonna get. Because that is what the movie was. So, let me go into it. Basically, the movie's plot involves this rabbit. Well, I'm not, I don't really do plot summaries in my movie reviews because I generally do them in a way where I assume the person has already watched them. Plus, if I find if you include a plot summary, the review lasts too long, and I don't like my videos getting too long, to be honest. So I'm not going to do a full-on plot summary, but basically, the rabbit character, she's the main character. She's a rabbit who wants to be a police officer in this all-animal world, and she moves to the big city. And it's kind of an analogy, I feel, for how so many rural people, they move to the big city and then they become all paused and liberalized when they get there. And it's a sad trend because a lot of these people, if they just stayed in the rural areas, they wouldn't get all paused. And in some ways, they're hit the worst by it, I find, because I find if you grow up in the city, there's a big chance you'll be somewhat red-pilled just from observing this shit your whole life. I don't know, maybe I'm off there, but anyway. I just don't like, they're promoting that narrative. They're promoting the idea you should move to the city. Like it's really a big, big commercial, a big kind of love letter to urbanism. And to be honest, I have no problem with urbanism innately, but I do have a problem with what urbanism is becoming because it's pretty obvious that nowadays, if you want to be white and conservative and like pro-white, you pretty much have to live in a rural area. Otherwise, you'll be in an environment where your views are constantly attacked. And where, to be quite frank, being around white people, like exclusively around white people, is very difficult. So anyway, what are my thoughts on Zootopia? Well, the funny thing is, here's really funny. When I was exiting the theater, there was this woman who was sitting kind of near me who was basically a mother. I guess you could call her a mud shark. She didn't look quite white, but she's like off-white, kind of probably like Persian or something similar to that. And she had like this mulatto baby. And so I'll call her mud shark anyway. I think a Persian woman with a mulatto baby or whatever she is would qualify, even if she's not technically white per se. Close enough. Anyway, she was just like, to her kid, like, that was such a good movie. Wow, very clever movie. Very, very good movie. Like, she loved this movie. And I'm thinking, of course you love that movie. Of course you love that fucking movie because you think that it plays into your narrative so well, like your worldview, that, oh, we should all just live together and everything will be happy in these kinds of environments. And I think the movie actually fails to advance its worldview, and I'm gonna get to why it fails in a second. But the funny thing is, as I was exiting the theater into the streets of Toronto at the busiest intersection in the city, Yonge and Dundas, just looking around me and seeing like all the fucking people, literally every different race, I just started laughing. I'm like, holy fuck, I'm literally in Zootopia. Like, it is literally Zootopia. And I can't help but wonder how many people left the theater into this, busiest intersection Toronto with pedestrians everywhere thinking the exact same thing, Like, it's practically like in Zootopia where you have, like, a giraffe here, a fucking hippo there, a lion over there, a fucking deer, a moose, a wolf, whatever. It's all mammals for some reason. I don't recall there being any birds or fish. I don't know why. That wasn't really explained. They talk about mammal inclusion initiative, so I have no idea. But anyway, this film, it actually keeps referencing political correctness, but in a positive, completely unironic way, where it doesn't seem to be satirizing it, but it's actually reinforcing it. Like, they talk about the mammal inclusion initiative. I don't even know what that means because they're all mammals, but they keep referencing that. I guess that means, like, herbivores. like they call it predators and prey, and I guess they mean the prey, who are 90% of the population. I don't know why they call it Mammal Inclusion Initiative. It makes no sense because they're all mammals. But anyway, they also say like they specifically use the word diversity describing the city, and they say a lot of stuff that's straight up liberal rhetoric, like verbatim. Like they don't even change the words to make it sound more like it applies to animals. They literally just take what could be some left wing statement that you'd hear on the news, and they say it. Like they have this fucking singer who's played by Shakira, who's like, I think, I forget what species. She's like no, she's called gazelle, right? She's a gazelle, and she makes a statement about, all this racism that's starting is hurting the diversity of our beautiful society. And she literally says it like that, fucking word for word. And this is a fucking kids movie, and it's totally unironic, like the way she said it. It's not even like a joke. It's not even like, if this was a movie that was mocking multiculturalism, it would be very clever, very witty indeed. But the fact that it's like unironically supporting it means that it's like, it's not a humor, it's basically just propaganda in these scenes. And like, I think it would actually have been, if you just changed the movie a little bit and you made it a parody of multiculturalism, and you made it about how multiculturalism ultimately doesn't work, I think that would be amazing, because it actually does unintentionally send that message, although it sabotages it with um, its stupid convoluted explanation for why things are happening the way they're happening. Because basically what happens is, everyone keeps pointing out, oh, predators and prey can't live together. The predators will start attacking the prey, which is true, Like, everything about the movie is completely unnatural. It's like the idea that all these animals can live together in peace. It goes against nature. So they're actually defeating their own argument, because they're showing a situation that is literally, according to the most literal, uncontested definition of the word, unnatural. And they admit it. Like, it's like, oh, we've evolved beyond, but it's bullshit, because everyone knows in real life these animals would tear each other to pieces. So as a metaphor, it's really bizarre, because it's flat out saying that multiculturalism is unnatural, but we should embrace it anyway. And basically, the plot of the movie is, I shit you not, the predators literally start chimping out. Like, basically like fucking Trayvon or Mike Brown, like Black Lives Matter. They literally just start chimping out. And the rabbit, the main character, she actually goes on TV and makes a fucking speech that, I shit you not, sounds literally like it was written by fucking Jared Taylor. She says, well, the reason for this is the predators. No, it would be, the predators have a biological predisposition toward violence against, and they primarily target this violence against the prey. And we prey people need to recognize these biological differences that result in their predisposition toward aggression. Now, it's clear that the predators and the prey cannot live together, because, like, she basically makes this speech, like, she actually says biological predisposition to violence. And it's funny because they do, like, I mean, in real life, no one would contest the fact that predators have a biological predisposition toward attacking prey. Like, that's fact, okay? So the movie's actually not even denying the fact that blacks have a predisposition toward violence or whatever. It's basically just saying, oh, but you can take the black out of the jungle. But you can't take the jungle out of the black. But can you? You can take the jungle out of the black until they chimp out. But the film's explanation for the chimp outs is like, oh, they're being shot with these weaponized toxins. And okay, by the way, if anyone is calling me especially racist in this review, don't shoot the messenger. I'm basically just relaying the plot of the movie here, okay? Like, these conclusions I'm drawing do not require much extrapolation. Like, it's basically that, like, they're chimping out, There's no other real explanation for it. Like, it's literally chimp outs, and she starts addressing it by talking about biological predisposition to violence. Like, this is not even a hidden analogy, okay? So I'm not being racist for pointing this out. Like, it's very obvious in the film. Although it's a bit confusing, because the way they describe the relationship between the predators and the prey, it's not clear who's supposed to be the whites and who's supposed to be the non-whites, because it could go at times it flip-flops, you know, like at the beginning of the film it made it seem like the predators are the whites and the prey are the non-whites because it shows this redneck fox picking on the rabbit and saying, you can't get anywhere, you're just a dumb rabbit. So it makes it seem like they have the white privilege. But then later on it seems it goes the other way around because it's the predators who are discriminated against as having a biological predisposition of violence. And also they say that the prey are 90% of the population. They're the majority, and the predators are the minority group who are being discriminated against. So it's confusing. It's like I think that's deliberate though, because they wanted to make it ham-fisted, but not too ham-fisted. And if they made it too obvious which group is the whites and which group is the non-whites, the movie might start. It would be too obvious, or it might even start offending people more. So they sort of flip-flop things a bit, and they make it really confusing. Like, it's obvious that the movie is a statement on multiculturalism and diversity and race, but it's not clear which group is which. And I was thinking to myself, trying to find a society that's analogous to it. I guess it would make more sense that the predators are the non-whites, but the beginning scene really with the redneck fox makes it seem otherwise. I mean, yeah. I guess if you took out that scene, you could say it, but I feel like they put in that scene just to, like, kind of confuse people. Although then again, they also have like that there's affirmative action for the prey. I don't know. It's confusing as fuck which side is which. But anyway, it's not like an Avatar where it's like clear as day. But anyway, the funny thing is the movie is self-defeating in a number of ways. Firstly, because as I said, it draws light on the fact that multiculturalism is unnatural. Secondly, like, you have this whole scene, which is in the trailer, with the sloths at the DMV, and that's basically affirmative action right there. Like, the sloths are literally what Ramsey Paul calls affirmative action retards. They're affirmative action hires, and it's funny because the fox is like, what? He's saying it almost like sarcastically as a joke, like, what? You think sloths aren't capable of working fast, just as fast as anybody else? And obviously they're not. So it's like, the scene would actually be a very good satire of affirmative action, which is funny because taken by itself in the trailer, that's kind of what it comes across as. I'm surprised those trailers didn't get more shit for that, actually. Well, probably because the trailer didn't make it obvious that the film was a race metaphor, but in the context of a movie that is a race metaphor, it's really funny to see that it's basically the results of affirmative action. You have a bunch of fucking idiots who can't do their jobs very well, hired for a position that they're really not qualified for, in what is obviously a case of affirmative action. Sloths. We need to employ more sloths. They're the lowest test scores because they take too long and they don't even finish the test. They get like 3 questions in by the 3-hour mark, so they fail every test. So we gotta advance the sloths into more fucking high-ranking positions. It's basically like in America, when you walk into a government, or in Canada even, you walk into a government office and there's a bunch of black women everywhere. A bunch of overweight black women. Or just people who can barely speak English. And then you know they got there because of affirmative action diversity quotas. Oh. But anyway. Our banks. Banks are like that too. Anyway. There's a few funny things in addition to, like, specific things I noticed. Like, for instance, there's this scene where the rabbit is trying to be a police officer, despite the fact that rabbits have never been police officers before because they're not really suited for it. And in order to succeed, the funny thing is when she's doing this whole training montage, in order to sit when it's at the point in the montage, that's called a montage. When it shows a little improvement, she basically, when she's improving, she jumps on the heads of the other animals to climb this wall that she couldn't climb before. And it's funny because it's like if she has to jump on the heads of the others to climb the wall successfully, that's basically a perfect metaphor for affirmative action right there. Like, oh yeah, she succeeds by literally climbing on the heads of the more qualified people. So I found that really funny, like really self-defeating. Like if it's trying to promote this idea of affirmative action, like we need more more people in the workplace who aren't suitable for their jobs. And yes, I do think it was deliberately an analogy for female police officers there. And there's plenty of studies on this showing that, generally speaking, having more male cops is a good thing. Like, it's a profession that men typically are more suited for and perform better at. Like, obviously there's exceptions, but that's just the general rule. So I found that really funny. And oh yeah, another really funny thing that I could see the movie get shit for. There's a scene where she's moving into her new apartment and there's like a maid there who's like a fucking armadillo with a Mexican accent. Like, I found that fucking hilarious. I actually burst out laughing in the theater when the fucking armadillo was talking in a Mexican, the armadillo maid, like, "Hey, señorita, here your apartment here. I clean it when you're not here. I not steal from your purse when I clean your apartment, I swear. Like, I cleaned your apartment." Oh my gosh. A Mexican armadillo. And so yeah, and the funny thing is in this movie is, you know, it uses the word like they talk about stereotyping, but the fact is the fox, for instance, he is a sly con man. He actually does live up to his nature as a fox. And so it's like, if the movie's supposed to be about how stereotypes aren't true, most of the animals do act in a stereotypical way. And most of their behavior actually reinforces the stereotypes. And so it's like, basically, if that's the message of the movie, it falls on its ass of that. But although it reflects real life in that way, that most people do live up to the stereotype. And basically, yeah, the final thing I really want to talk about is how the grand plot, the whole plot to make the predators chimp out, how it's caused by like these fucking blue balls of this flower or whatever. And what was really random was there was the scene in the lab where it obviously looked like a meth lab, and then they referred to these two rams as Walter and Jesse, but then the rams didn't actually look or act or talk like Walter and Jesse. I don't know why they would do that and not follow through on the joke. Like, have the Jesse would be like, hey yo, we gotta get that guy, yo, we gotta get that girl, yo, we gotta get that bitch. I guess they can't say bitch in a Disney movie, although they can show fucking a guy getting his throat slit and blood spraying in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but they can't say the word bitch. But yeah, he'd be like, yo, get that. Maybe he'd say some substitute for bitch, and you know, it's something like that. You know, like, why did they not take that joke further? If they're gonna call them Walt and Jesse, why not go a bit further with it? But anyway, I digress. Anyway, okay, so it's just funny that the explanation is, oh, these chimp outs, they're not really chimping out. It's a conspiracy to make them chimp out so people will be racist against them and exclude them. And the ultimate conspiracy is to infect all of them so they will all chimp out. So it's basically insinuating this premise that chimp outs are this conspiracy that's caused by like some kind of mind-altering drug that they're being shot with. Yeah, well, to some extent that's true. That mind-altering drug is called crack cocaine, but nobody's forcing them to take it. But anyway, I was just thinking, like, Trayvon, like, there's this conspiracy. If you'd applied this to real life, it's like there was this conspiracy to make the blacks chimp out, so they drugged Trayvon's iced tea and Skittles. So when he started drinking this iced tea and Skittles, he reverted into like this animalistic, savage stage and like started attacking George Zimmerman. And it's all this big conspiracy that they made him chimp out by deliberately injecting the Skittles and iced tea with the fucking drug that makes him chimp out. I just found the premise of it really funny, how it's like, oh, well, you know, if the chimp outs were real, then it would be completely legitimate to respond in this way by calling it biological determinism. But the chimp outs aren't real. It's a conspiracy that's caused by injecting them by the sniper with this dart gun with the drugs in it. So I find it really funny how it kind of resolves its plotline that way. So it doesn't directly refute the idea that the chimp outs are evidence of biological predisposition toward aggression and violence It just says like, oh, in this particular case, it was a conspiracy to make them chimp out. So I find that really funny. Another example of how the film's message is ultimately self-defeating, and plus the overall subtext that like, oh, it's unnatural for them to live together, because it is. Like, fucking, you put a giraffe and a fucking lion together, the lion's gonna eat the giraffe. You know, like, it doesn't take a genius to think of that. So basically, this is a very self-defeating metaphor, this movie. And also another thing is, in Zootopia, the animals can coexist, but they're not all going to breed each other out. There's not going to be this loss of ecological diversity with like a half giraffe, half polar bear popping up. I guess you could argue that it would lead to the brown bears breeding out the white bears, but it wouldn't lead to like all these animals being collectively bred out into this like homogenous blob. So that's another way that it's not really analogous for multiculturalism. But yeah, anyway, so overall Zootopia as a movie it was entertaining for sure, but as left-wing propaganda, I find it funny how these people are probably going to eat it up and say like, "Oh, this movie was so brave, so courageous, so clever, such a good metaphor." But I'm saying no, it's actually a very, very self-defeating metaphor.